He was the kind of person who could stand in the middle of a crowded room and still feel completely alone. If you've ever been surrounded by people yet felt invisible, this story about self-worth is going to feel uncomfortably familiar. For most of his life, Daniel believed that having a lot of friends meant he was doing something right. His social media looked full group photos, parties, random hangouts, long comment threads. But in quiet moments, when the music stopped and he was finally alone with his thoughts, something didn't feel right. He noticed that when things were going well, when he was funny, generous, and available, everyone was around. But the moment he needed real support, his phone stayed silent. The people he called friends knew his jokes and his habits, but they didn't really know his heart. He laughed with them, but rarely felt safe enough to be honest with them. Deep down, he felt lonely and lost. But he kept ignoring it because admitting it would mean admitting something about himself he didn't want to face. Maybe his circle wasn't the problem. Maybe his self-worth was. Things started to crack during one of the hardest seasons of his life. He went through a breakup and a bad period at work all at once. He expected his friends to show up, to check in, to sit with him in the mess. Instead, most of them changed the subject, gave surface-level advice, or disappeared when he wasn't fun to be around. A few even mocked him for being too emotional when he tried to open up. He would leave those interactions feeling worse than before, more misunderstood, more ashamed, more alone. One night after another outing where he felt like a background character in his own life, he came home, sat at the edge of his bed, and realized something painful. He was investing his heart in people who didn't value it, and the common factor in all of these relationships was him. Not because he was unlovable, but because his low self-worth kept him accepting crumbs and calling it connection. That night, he did something he had never done before. Instead of asking, "Why are people like this?" he asked, "Why am I choosing people like this?" He grabbed a notebook and wrote a brutally honest question at the top of the page. If my relationships are a mirror of how I see myself, what are they showing me? As he listed recent moments, friends ignoring his boundaries, laughing at his pain, using him only when they needed something, he saw a pattern. He tolerated disrespect because he was afraid of being alone. He kept entertaining shallow connections because deep down he didn't believe he deserved better. His self-worth was low, and it was silently choosing his circle for him. That realization hurt, but it was also his turning point. Because if his self-worth had contributed to this loneliness, then healing his self-worth could also help him attract the right people. From that day, he decided to treat his inner world with the same seriousness he had given to his social life. The first step was learning to be okay with his own company. That didn't mean pretending he didn't need people. It meant proving to himself that his value didn't depend on constant distraction. He started spending some evenings alone on purpose, no parties, no forced hangouts, no endless scrolling. At first the silence felt heavy. Old thoughts surfaced. You're boring. Nobody really cares. You're going to end up alone. But instead of running from those thoughts, he challenged them. He wrote them down and asked, "Is this actually true, or is this my insecurity speaking?" He remembered moments when he had been a loyal friend, when he had encouraged others, when he had shown up for people. Slowly, he started noticing evidence that he wasn't useless. He simply hadn't been appreciated by the right people. As his self-awareness grew, he made one of the hardest but most powerful decisions of his life. He began to create distance from the wrong people. Not with drama, not with big fights, but with quiet boundaries. He stopped saying yes to every invitation that left him feeling drained. He stopped oversharing his deepest feelings with people who had already proven they couldn't hold them with care. He stopped chasing those who only responded when they needed something. Some people noticed the shift and got upset. They accused him of changing, of thinking he was better than them. That hurt, but he realized something important. The people who benefit from your low self-worth will always be uncomfortable when you start valuing yourself. Their reaction was not a sign that he was wrong. It was proof that he was finally breaking out of a cage. At the same time, he made room in his life for new connections. He started showing up in spaces where people shared his values and interests, classes, small groups, volunteer projects, online communities focused on growth rather than gossip. At first he felt awkward. He worried he would be judged or ignored. But this time he walked in with a different inner posture. Instead of thinking, "Please like me," he thought, I hope I meet people I genuinely like and respect. That one mental shift changed everything. He no longer tried so hard to perform or impress. He listened more, asked better questions, and let people see glimpses of his real self instead of just his funny, entertaining side. It didn't happen overnight, but slowly. He began to meet people who responded differently, people who remembered small details he shared, who checked in on him unprompted, who encouraged his dreams instead of mocking them. One evening, after a long conversation with a new friend who had opened up about their own struggles with loneliness, he walked home with a strange feeling in his chest. Peace. For the first time in a long time, he felt seen and safe in someone's presence. He realized this friend didn't need him to be perfect. They just needed him to be honest. Over time, 2 or 3 such people became the core of his new circle. They celebrated his wins without jealousy, told him the truth with kindness when he needed to hear it, and respected his boundaries. In return, he did the same for them. He was no longer chasing a large crowd. He was investing in a small, strong tribe. And as his circle became healthier, something else blossomed: his self-worth. He started to understand on a deep level that self-worth comes first, the right people come second. When you see yourself as valuable, you stop tolerating relationships that make you feel small. You stop explaining your worth to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You're willing to be alone for a season instead of settling for half love and fake support. That's exactly what happened to Daniel. The more he respected himself, his time, his energy, his heart, the more naturally he walked away from environments that didn't match that respect. The loneliness that used to feel like a punishment began to feel like a filter, removing the wrong people and making space for better ones. One day, sitting in a cafe with his small group of close friends laughing about something simple, he had a quiet realization. He no longer felt lonely in a crowd because he was no longer pretending to be someone else to be accepted. He was surrounded by the right people, and that changed everything. They didn't fix his life for him, but they walked with him as he continued to heal, grow, and chase his goals. They reminded him of his worth on the days he forgot. And because he had done the internal work, he could finally believe them when they said, "You deserve better, and we're glad you're here." If you are feeling lonely and lost, stuck in circles that don't see your value, remember this: your self-worth is the gatekeeper of your relationships. When you raise your standards for how you treat yourself, you automatically raise the standards for who you allow close to you. You don't need 1,000 friends. You need a few right people who speak life into you, not drain it out of you. Be willing to step back from the wrong crowd, even if it feels scary. Use that space to rebuild your sense of worth through reflection, healing, growth, and self-respect. Then start showing up in places where people are also trying to grow, heal, and do better. You'll be surprised how quickly your world begins to change when you do. This story comes from Willpower Stories, a channel created for people who are tired of feeling stuck, unseen, or alone and are ready to rebuild their mindset, their habits, and their circle. Here, you'll find powerful motivational stories about self-worth, discipline, comebacks, relationships, money, and mental strength told in simple English for a United States audience that wants real change, not just empty quotes. If you're ready to stop chasing the wrong people and start becoming the person who attracts the right ones, subscribe to Willpower Stories, turn on notifications, and let every new story remind you that you are worthy of better starting today.